Today our topic is cardiology. We're going to finish the medicine part. So we have the first pulse, which is showing here is a diagram, which is showing the dichrotic notch, which is due to the bouncing back of the blood from the aorta, which is against the closed aortic valve, which is after occurring a systole. Now we have a second diagram, which is anacrotic pulse, which is slow rise of pulse with a small or absent dichrotic notch, which is seen in usually valvular aortic stenosis, which is also known as by the name pulsus parvus et tardus. We have to remember this term. Now this is the third diagram, which is showing the pulsus bisferens. We have to remember this. Now the fourth one is the collapsing pulse, now which is rapid rise, rapid fall initially. Now we have the final, which is a dichrotic notch, and now we have the pulsus attendans. This is showing the alternating peaks. These are the weak pulses here. Now we're going to study about the irregularly irregular pulse, which means which usually seen in the atrial fibrillation, or also known as the term pulsus paradoxus, which is seen in the inspiratory disappearance of the pulse, which is during evaluation of the normal breathing is advised. We have to remember the condition in which these are seen in, that is C-tamponade, constrictive pericarditis, inferior wall MI. Now this ABCD of pulse, which is anacrotic, bisferens, collapsing and dichrotic. So we have to look for the heart rate in lead 2, and the heart rate is equals to 300 upon number of large squares. Now we have irregular RR interval. If it is having, it could be two condition, it either it could be atrial fibrillation or could be multifocal atrial tachycardia. These are the two diagrams where we can see easily the atrial fibrillation and the multifocal atrial tachycardia, which is also known as MAT. Now atrial fibrillation, basically its management protocol is remembered by RACE, which is rate control, anticoagulation, chemical cardioversion, and if the CCC fails, we go for the electrical cardioversion. So now the multifocal atrial tachycardia is the irregular RR interval, which is the morphology, so of different morphologies of pain. Now we have to remember the management of MAT, which is the multifocal atrial tachycardia, which is DC shock is contraindicated, and we should treat the cause. And now the rhythm control, which is by verapamil and diltiazem. Now we have to remember the risks which were associated in the atrial fibrillations. Before going to the risk factor, these are the two photographs in which we can see the and rule out the MAT condition. Here we can easily trace out the differences in the lead 1, in the lead 2 and in the lead 3. So now these are the points where we have to differentiate them from the other points. These are the important topics, atrial fibrillation and the risk assessment also, which we remember by the CHA2DS2. So the risk factors are basically the congestive heart failure, the hypertension, or the age of person is more than 75 years of age, or if the person is diabetic or is having a stroke or is suffering from any vascular diseases, or if a person is female. So the embolic stroke, we remember the drugs which were used are rivaroxaban and dabigatran. Now atrial fibrillation with the WPW syndrome. So this is an important thing which we have to remember. Atrial fibrillation degenerates to ventricular fibrillation due to WPW, that is the all atrial impulses go to the ventricles via bundle of Cant. That digoxin is basically contraindicated. Now the atrial flutter is also mentioned here, which we can also see in the respective picture, that is it because of the macro reatant circuit, which is primarily focused around cavo-tricuspid isthmus. So the management is basically chemical cardioversion is basically done by abutolite. Now we're going to study about the PSVT and AV-NRT, which is the AV nodal re-enter tachycardia. So these are given in the narrow is the QRS, red is the ST depression, and the yellow is the merging of P and T waves. Now there is management of PSVT and AV-NRT, which is the by the by the prevention of syncopal attacks by catheterization or giving verapamil, or by preventing the acute episodes by the cardiac sinus massage, or by crashing the patient, that is syncopal attack of the low patient PP, we go for the DC shock. Here we can see when we given the adenosine, the rhythms are constantly changing. This is showing the normal sinus rhythm after adenosine in PSVT. Now we're going to study about the supraventricular tachycardia, which is seen in the four conditions, like in the atrial fibrillation and MAT, in atrial flutter and in PSVT. Then we have WPW syndrome, which is an accessory pathway, and there's these are the diagrams in the lead 1, 2, 3 and 4 is showing for WPW. Now we have heart rate, which we can easily remember that it is less than 50 beats per meter. So we have to remember the dimensions of the respective leads. Like in lead, the right side is more is positive, and in AVF the S is deeper. We're going to study about how to read the ECGs in the next subsequent discussions also. So here is a diagram which is showing the Osborne wave, which is showing a very important thing, that the Osborne wave is basically seen in hypothermia or in conditions of hypocalcemia. So the abnormalities of QRS are the importance of the point. If there is a QRS is narrow, we see it to be SVT. If we having a delta wave, we go for the WPW. It's Osborne wave. It is either hypothermia. Now we have to remember the monomorphic VT, which is ventricular tachycardia, which is seen in the cases of broad complex QRS. So we have to remember, we manage it by giving DC shock, and we have to remember the non-synchronized DC shock is also given in the cases of ventricular tachycardia. Now this is Joseph sign, which is seen in the VT. We can see it in the diagram that there is a picture which is showing the Joseph sign. It is its management is by stable condition. We go for the amiodarone. In ventral flutter cases, we go for the sinusoidal pattern. Now we have polymorphal ventricular tachycardia, where the heart rate succeeds on 200 per minute. Its management is either by MgSO4 or by giving DC shock. Now the ventricular fibrillation, here we go with the uniform trolling all over. The management is either by pulseless VT or by BP recordable. Now we have the first chest compression, which is at 100 and 120. Now this is the management. Now we're going for the specific therapies we given, that like we go for the continuous CPR. We basically repeat the shock. Now if the patient is asystole or having pulseless activity or is going polymorphic, we going to give these successive techniques. Now the total DC shock should be given is in vertical fibrillation is at least 3 minimum. Now we have to remember the electrical alternance, that is the heart rate 150 per minute, and this picture is clearly showing the QRS changes also, which is in pericardial effusion or cardiac tamponade. Now we have the chest x-rays, which is cardiothoracic. Now the money bag or the water bottle sign, we can easily see in this diagram that the lungs have showing you characteristically a water bottle sign or a neck of a water bottle. So now money bag or water bottle appearance, the characteristic of this is given, and the difference between a cardiac tamponade and deep pneumothorax is also given. Now we have to remember the electrolyte abnormality, which is in hyperkalemia, which is the heart rate is normal or regular, or blood is basically broad QRS. Now these are the conditions which we see in hyperkalemia. There is P wave is absent, there is ST elevation. Now we have to remember its management also, which is either chronic or it could be an acute. So these are the things. Now in the picture we are seeing, we are showing a T pneumothorax, which is showing the BPs is down and there is no breath sounds, and there is hyper resonance to the percussions also. Now in the cardiac tamponade, there is a Beckett stride, which is there, that is the hypotension, muffled heart sounds, and there is elevated JVP. Now we have to remember the electrolyte abnormalities like the hyperkalemia. It's having a characteristic peak. It is having a characteristic peaked T waves or small or indissociable P waves. So now its management basically goes in either in chronic or in an acute way. In chronic condition, we give the patromer or the sodium zirconate, or we basically give the K binding resin. Now in the acute, we go for the calcium chloride or insulin drip or the salbutamol. So now we have to remember the important point that the no routinely used is basically increase in K, which is the sodium bicarbonate, or hypokalemia, which is the ST elevation is depressed, and T wave inversion. And this is a diagram which is showing this condition. Now the cause of death in this condition is diaphragmatic paralysis. The management is basically by targeting the value of K positive. We basically go to given around 200 milli equivalent of KCl to elevate the levels of to elevate the levels of potassium, and it is an example which is giving. Now we're going to see in the conditions in HOCM. Now the most common cardiomyopathy is basically asymmetrical septal hypertrophy, which basically seen in the causes of left ventricle outflow tract obstruction. Now we're going to remember the murmurs are basically decreased on Valsalva on standing, and there is exception also for it, which is SOCM is louder in the cases of LVOTO, that is a gradient basically increase and the murmur are increased. Now we're going to discuss about the all murmurs on increases on squatting and hand grip except HOCM, and the management is basically by the propranolol, or treatment of choice here is implantable cardiovascular defibrillator. Now we're going to remember the dilated cardiomyopathies, which is the diachrotic pulse is going to have. There is a functional murmur, and which is the systolic murmur. Now there is MR and TR, that is the pulmonary edema and hepatic congestion. The restrictive cardiomyopathies are basically the stiff heart. The Kussmaul sign is also there. Now these are the four pictures which is showing the characteristic things like the erratic fashion hold pattern and the multinucleated pattern, and there is an amyloid deposition also. Now we have an arrhythmatic right ventricular dysplasia, which is a type of cardiomyopathy, and it is a disease of desmosomes. So now the characterized by fat deposits in the heart, which is fibrofatty history, is going to be there in the siblings also. The management is basically ICD. Now there is an diagram also that is for Brugada syndrome. Now this is an ECG of Mobil's type 2 heart block, which is showing a mixed beat because the ventricles didn't contract at this point. So we have to identify it, and there is an identification point for it also. We have to diagnose this condition, and we have to remember the first degree heart block also. Now there is this strip of ECG, we're going to see a misbeat also. Now we're going to differentiate it from the Mobius first heart block and to the second heart degree block. Now the further images is showing you the second degree heart blockage and the first degree heart blockage. Now we have an basically a management of bradyarrhythmia, which is the bradyarrhythmia typically we see in the heart rate, which is the 15 per minute, and there is also a priority which should be given to identify and treat the underlying causes. Now we have the monitor, and we basically observe this condition, and this diagram is going to help you in this. Now the characteristically, now we going down now, which is the aortic dissection. We have a small pictures over here which is telling you the aortic dissection condition, which is seen in the hypertension and in Marfan syndrome. Antegrade progression is a very characteristic point, that is a retrograde progression also. And now the investigation of choice here is transesophageal echocardiography, which is showing you in the figures, which is the hemodynamically unstable patient. And if a patient is stable, the CT chest is basically be done, which show a tennis ball configuration, which we can see in the picture. Now we have the management. We go for the type A dissection or type B for the aortic dissection. Now depending upon the stability, we moderate our type of treatment. Now we go for the findings which we're going to find in the ECG, that is the ST elevation in the 1 and 2. In the chest leads, there is going to be a depression also of ST lead. And now the interpretation are basically done. Now we're going to diagnose that a posterior wall MI. Now there are several types of MI, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, A4, AB and 5, which we're going to discuss later on. Now there is biomarkers for MI. Before studying the biomarkers, we're basically going to see these images which are showing the second degree AV block and a 2:1 ratio AV block. So here we're going to see the Mobius type 2 and the basically second degree block. In these images, we can easily differentiate them. As we can see, there is non-conducted P wave and there is a conducted P wave. While in the third degree heart block with the junction XA, there is a broad QRS complex and the PR interval are significantly increased, while the RR interval and PB interval do not have a match. It is seen in the mothers which is having SLE also. Now this is an important thing which we are going to discuss, that is the biomarkers for MI, which is best biomarker of MI here is, we have to remember that troponin. The earliest biomarker is heart fatty acid binding protein. Now there is LDH, which is mainly present inside heart, LDH2 which present in the blood. Now there is indication of statins also, where the patient who have already atherosclerosis or diseases like angina or stroke will have a normal LDL, while the normal LDL should be less than 100 milligram. Like the target LDL for a high risk population, it should be less than 70%. Now there is a note which we have to remember, that is the Framingham scoring is used basically, and there is Framingham criteria is also used to identify the congestive heart diseases. Now there is increased TG or triglyceridemia. Now we have to remember the hibernating myocardium versus the scar difference and the chronic stage is angina. Now this image, it is characteristic showing the Agatston score, which is seen on the CT angiography. This image is basically showing the contraindications for the treadmill test, that is the severe aortic stenosis or the do stress echo. Now the thallium scan, which is the gold standard for the identification of a blockade. Now there is a drug of choice for the chronic stable angina, and there is a treatment of choice for the revascularization procedures also. Now there is a heart rate which is less than 100 per minute, and there is ST segment depression in lead 2. The diagnosis is basically on myocardial ischemia, and this image is showing the bat wing pulmonary edema also. So the bat wing pulmonary edema is here is showing the causes of bat wing pulmonary edema is the acute decompensated congestive heart failure, where the management is basically done by LMNOP, that is Lasix, morphine, nitroglycerin, O2, and the positioning in such a way of that. Now there is another cause of it, which is the cardiogenic shock. So these are the basically in this image we can see in the lungs, we can see a characteristically white image over the left side of it, that is showing a characteristically presence of a, or image like a wing, that is depicting the syndrome which is the bat wing pulmonary edema. Basically it is seen in the cases like cardiogenic shock or in the cases of decompensated cardiac heart failure. So these are the things which we have to remember, and this image which we have to characteristically remember. And basically now we're going to study the management of cardiogenic shock, which is by norepinephrine, dopamine, dopabutamine, and there's ARNI also, and aldosterone antagonist also used. Now we're going to study about the murmurs. So murmurs are given are murmurs of supra, that is the valvular aortic stenosis. In a normal individual, the ejection of the blood is basically from the left ventricle, while in the aorta it is usually distributed to the right and the left blood vessels. Why ejection systolic murmur is basically equal in both the side, which is the causes of aortic stenosis are the hyperthyropic obstructive cardiomyopathies also. Now there is conditions which are causing the unequal BP in both the arms, like in the Takayusu arteritis and in the pregundal coarctation of aorta, supraventricular aortic stenosis. So all murmurs will have lesser in intensities with valvular standing, but HOCM murmurs are becomes louder. So that's it. Now we're going to discuss the murmurs. So murmurs are basically early diastolic murmur or mild diastolic murmur, which we remember by gap or by mnemonic CAM. So gap is basically Graham-Steele murmur, aortic regurgitation and pulmonary regurgitation, while the SCAM is basically cardiac Calm's murmur, Frostenfeld murmur, and the mitral stenosis murmur. So the continuous murmurs are these, and the systolic murmurs also. Turner syndrome, this is we have to remember that in bicuspid aortic valve is seen, and the murmur is basically systolic murmur, and this coarctation is seen, the murmur is continuous. Now we have an image which is showing the broken heart syndrome, that is the Kakaisu cardiomyopathy, which is acute onset of the cardiomyopathies which are due to catecholaminergic excess. Now we have the case scenario, a very beautifully explained case scenario which you will going to read. And now this Kawasaki disease, which is having immense importance in your prof exam. ECG findings here we can see, and there is a clinical findings are the fever is going to stay for the 5 days, there is going to be cervical lymphadenopathy, strawberry tongue, the feeling rash, pulmonary congestion, and now the management is basically immunoglobulin, and the low dose of aspirin is basically administered. Now the MI, the ECG we have to remember, and everybody remember the ST elevation, and that is MI. So the types of ST variations are basically Paradis sign, which is shown in the image. Now the acute pericarditis and the Cove pattern is seen. Now there is causes of ST elevation, which are we can remember by the mnemonic elevation AB, that is electrolyte imbalance LBB, and rest of these. Now the causes of acute pericarditis are idiopathic. Investigation of choice over here. On examination, we're going to find the pericardial friction rub. The ECG will give ST elevation along with the concave. Now the cardiac biomarkers will be normal. Now the management will be viral. TB we're going to check, uremia malignant also we're going to check. Now the Dressler syndrome, there where the aspirin is given around 650. Now differences from pericardial effusion to cardiac tamponade. Now the metabolic syndrome, which is the clinical identification of the metabolic syndrome, which is the risk factor and the defining level. So the abdominal obesity and the defining levels are being given. Now the coronary syndrome, which is the X or the clinical features, which is similar to the chronic stable angina or the hibernating myocardium. Now this management is also being given here. And there is a syndrome Z, which we have to remember, and another beautiful term, that is the Pickwickian syndrome. Now the rheumatic fever, the major criteria for it going to be the low risk population and the moderate and high risk population. Now we're going to study it, and the minor criteria is for the low risk populations and for the moderate and high risk population. So these are the notes for the 2015 update. Now they're going to be a major and the minor changes like the subclinical carditis, monoarthritis, monoarthralgia, ESR, endocarditis. Manifestation are also given like the valvular involvement, the lesions, the commissural ends, and the node. The choreo manifestation is basically due to the caudate nucleus involvement. So we have to remember the following images for the following diagrams for the minor and the major criteria, and the endocardial manifestations also. So we have to remember the note point, that is the choreo manifestation is basically due to the caudate nucleus involvement. Now in the next slide we're going to study about the management, that is we given the aspirin, steroids, mitral stenosis, mitral regurgitation, chorea, or further refractive chorea, or the injections. Now, the prophylaxis duration is going to be for the RH rheumatic heart disease plus MR is going to 40 years. For a rheumatic heart disease, 21 years, rheumatic fever, 21 years. And the duration is also mentioned. Penicillin allergen, we're going to give azithromycin. Now, the penjatine penicillin in cardiovascular syphilis, we're going to manage for the late latent syphilis. The types of syphilis and their treatment is respectively given, which is we have to remember. Now there is a cardiac axis which is beautifully showing the normal axis of the heart, and this is normal axis of heart. Now there is a left axis deviation. So this axis is very helpful to remember the and to read the ECG. We have to understand it. This is showing a complex image, and in the right side we're going to see an simple image. Now the left axis deviation, we can see that the right sided elevation minus S sided elevation, we're going to give it a positive thing. In the right side axis deviation, the R minus S will going to give you a negative answer. So the causes for it, left axis deviation are mentioned, and the right axis deviation, these are the points. In the lead one we're going to find positive minus, and in the lead two we're going to find a plus. Now the causes of right axis deviation is also mentioned, which is the COPD, pulmonary hypertension. Now the extreme axis deviation, if it's occurring, it could to be 90 to 180, which is mostly seen in ventricular tachycardia. Now the infective endocarditis, we have the manifestations, that is embolic manifestations. Now, the organisms in infective endocarditis are the acute bacterial endocarditis. The organism responsible is Streptococcus, or hospital-acquired it S. aureus. Now, we have to remember the drug users, the following drugs and its management. Now, the prostate valve endocarditis is very famous. Now, the modified Duke's criteria, which is asked many times in exams. Now there is a culture negative endocarditis. This is broadly explained. Now the congenital heart diseases, we have to go for the tetralogy of Fallot, which is a squatting episode. The TET spell severity, it is basically going to decrease. So the management of TET spell is by the knee chest, morphine. We're going to give the soda bicarbonate, methoxamine. So the note here is the calcium chloride, which is not going to use in the TET spell. So the intensity of murmur basically decreases in TOF. Now due to the subpulmonic stenosis, the ejection is going to take place after, and more deoxygenated blood is going to enter from the right ventricle to the left ventricle. And the drug of choice for tetralogy of Fallot is alprostadil. Now the symptoms of tetraphalangy basically appears after 7 days of life, because ductus is going to patent going to be there. Now the functional closure of ductus occurs at the day 7. Now there is TGA, which is a deoxygenated blood goes into the right atrium from the right ventricle. Now and the deoxygenated blood goes from the lungs to LA. So both sides are mixed and lead to patent ductus arteriosus. Now there is characteristic test finding, that is the egg on the side appearance and egg in cup appearance, which we is going to see in constrictive pericarditis. Now the chest X-ray finding are boot shaped heart, which is seen in tetralogy of Fallot. Now the box shaped heart, which is Epstein anomaly, and the figure of 8 in the TAPVC. Now the left and right to left causes for the cardiac heart failure plus the rheumatic pneumonia and the cyanosis failure to try. So these are the mixed effects we're going to study, are the TAPVC and the TGA. Now the heart sound, basically this is a very interesting topic, that is heart sound. S2 is basically a wide split, and it's going to have a we're going to study it into, it has two ways basically, it is either wide or it could be narrow. Now the S1 and S2 are this. Now S1 is basically a narrow split, and it is a murmur stenosis. Now S3 is basically a condition which is associated with dilate cardiomyopathy, core pulmonale, inferior wall myopathies, and pulmonary embolism, and the pericardial shudder also. So the basically the S1 is basically narrow split, and the S2 is basically two types, that is wide split and the narrow split. Wide split is seen in VSD, MR, and RBB, right bundle branch block, and in narrow split it is seen in aortic stenosis. Now there is S for all